Deputy First Minister, first of all, congratulations on your appointment. The UK government says the 3.3 billion promised if the government was restored here was conditional upon your new power sharing executive raising, I think, £113 million. Michelle O'Neill says that's nonsense. Were the parties here, and particularly the DUP, hoodwinked by the UK government?
Look, absolutely not. This was put forward not as something for agreement by the parties. This was something that was proposed by the Secretary of State. There was a series of discussions and negotiations around that, and the Secretary of State went, look, this is what it is, this is where it lands. As part of that, of course, they have proposed, as of course the Treasury would, an element of revenue raising. You have to understand the income profile in terms of the vast majority of people throughout Northern Ireland. There are a huge number of very, very pressed, squeezed income families here. You will have heard in recent weeks the pressures on those families in terms of childcare. We've got some of the most unaffordable childcare across this United Kingdom. So there's a lot of pressures, cost of living crisis, there's inflation increases. We're very conscious that those families are under huge financial pressure, and yet, of course, the UK government is proposing to put additional pressure on those. Those are the families that are going to pay this. So what I'm indicating is that, look, this is not the time to put that additional pressure on. We need to get the Northern Ireland Executive and Assembly stabilised. We want to tackle the big issues. We need to do reform. That will take time. But of course, at the moment, let's think about the pressures that people are under.
So just to be clear, you were part of the negotiating team. If this government in Northern Ireland is unable to raise that revenue, the £3.3 billion offer still stands.
Well, look, we will be making those strong representations to the Secretary of State, to the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, to the Chancellor, to the government, whoever will listen, as we did during that process, that we don't think that this proposal is the right one for right now. Absolutely not. But of course, we welcome the fact that we secured that 3.3 billion. It was the DUP that stood firm and said, look, the public finances of Northern Ireland are unsustainable as they are. While others would have went straight back in and had to manage significant cuts, we stood firm and we fought for this financial package, not just for unionism in Northern Ireland, but for everybody, because these public services genuinely matter and have an impact on everybody, no matter what your politics or your background. So that's why we were determined to get a good deal on that. I absolutely welcome the fact that we've secured 3.3 billion. But of course, with public sector pay pressures and other issues with our public sector services, there is a lot to be done, and we do need the right resources to do that.
Michelle O'Neill and Emma Little-Pengelly are from polar opposite backgrounds. Her father an IRA prisoner, your father was at one time a loyalist prisoner. Literally, you've come from guns to government. To what extent do you think that shared experience of what we call the Troubles will help you share power in Northern Ireland?
Well, I've always said that I don't believe the children of anybody should be blamed for the alleged actions of another. But look, you know, we have very different experiences in our life. But of course, that difference ought not to mean that we can't get on well, we can't work constructively. And for my part, I'm absolutely determined to do so. You know, I think people of Northern Ireland demand of us to work together, demand of us to get that delivery and to reform public services. In that space, there's a huge amount that we can agree on and work constructively with. So I'm coming into this with a very, very positive attitude. I get on with and engage with people from across all different types of views and backgrounds. I've always done that. So I don't see any issue with that. But of course, what we need is a professional, good, strong, constructive working relationship. And that's what I will be pushing for.
Many thought the DUP would never facilitate a nationalist First Minister by nominating a Deputy First Minister. That in itself is a historic shift. How long did you have to think about it when Sir Geoffrey Donaldson asked you to take on this job?
Well, look, we've always said that the people who said that were wrong. We always said that the issue was, of course, about dealing with the problems of the protocol. But look, you know, as I've said before, if you're asked to do a role like this, it's a huge honour. And I consider it a massive privilege to have the opportunity to serve. And I will do so with, you know, clear commitment, with a focus on delivery, because I really want Northern Ireland to work. And I see the issues and I see the challenges, particularly in relation to our public services. So, like, you know, when you're asked to do such a thing, you've got a choice. You either step forward, you step up and you do it, or you step back. And I felt it was an important thing to do. It was the right thing to do in those circumstances.
But there must be some opposition to it internally within the party, given that big names like Lord Dodds and Sammy Wilson are very publicly still stating that they don't believe the deal removed the trade border in the Irish Sea.
Well, look, people will have a range of personal views and opinions, of course they will. But our DUP party executive has made a decision. They made that decision on the basis of a very, very detailed presentation and analysis with questions around all of the detail of this document and this deal. So, look, I remain friends with all of my colleagues, and certainly I haven't heard any criticism articulated to me on that.
There's been a lot of talk about Irish unity, if and when there should be a referendum, because we have a nationalist First Minister now. You'll hold very different positions on the outcome of any border poll. But do you agree that a border poll should take place in the next decade?
Look, I don't think that the evidence is there to suggest such a thing at all. When you look at the recent Queen's University research, for example, it's indicating that only 30% of people in Northern Ireland are supportive of Irish unity. So that is the same levels as it was back in 1998. So just over 25 years, and that hasn't moved. There isn't a momentum towards this. There's plenty of people who try to insist that there is that momentum. It doesn't. Like, I'm a unionist. I'm a strong unionist. I love Northern Ireland, and I think Northern Ireland is best served within this United Kingdom. And that's certainly the case that I will be making in relation to my unionism.
Emma Little-Pitgelly, thanks very much.
Thank you.